Hi, I'm Dr. John Rains, and I've recently retired from the Religion Department at Temple University after teaching there for almost 50 years. I want to talk with you about an important event coming up this October out in Oakland, California. But before I do that, I want to say a word about who I am. In the early 1960s, I became active in the civil rights movement. One of the things I did is I became a freedom rider. I rode buses down south to test whether or not the interstate travel arrangements were in fact desegregated, as the Supreme Court said they had to be. 4 of us, 2 blacks and 2 whites, left St. Louis and traveled to Little Rock, Arkansas in July of 1961. The 4 of us went together, black and white together, into the white waiting room where we were arrested on the charge of a threatened breach of the peace. The next day, we went before a judge. He took us into chambers before finding us guilty, and he said, I need to have you know why I'm going to find you guilty, because if I don't, I won't get reelected. Now that was the beginning of a second education, an education I desperately needed but did not know at that time that I needed. You see, I was born, rather obviously, a white male, but I was born into a family of very considerable class privilege. We had live-in maids, private schools, and even for a while, a governess. In other words, I was born into, without my asking it, I was born into privilege and power, a small bubble at the top of our society. That was the first world I lived. It was the first world I learned. That was the first self I became. But then, in that courtroom, in Little Rock, standing before that judge, I found myself in a place I had never been before, outside of power, regarded by power as the enemy of power, and power had the power to punish me for that. I was beginning to get a second education most folks like me never did get. I was beginning to see what the world looked like and lived like, not from top down, but from bottom up. That would take me many years later to look at what was going on in J. Edgar Hoover's FBI. Those of us who were active in the civil rights movement knew that he hated the civil rights movement. He hated Martin Luther King. We also knew that he hated the anti-war movement and all kinds of dissent. But we didn't know how to prove that. So a group of us, called the Citizens Commission to Investigate the FBI, decided to break in to an FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania in March of 1971. We removed the files and then sent them to the newspapers. For the first time, that man, J. Edgar Hoover, was held accountable by newspapers and by folks in our government. For the first time, he had to begin to explain what he had been doing with his FBI. Eventually, those files would lead a path to the discovery and disclosure of his dirty tricks outfit called COINTELPRO. COINTELPRO was an unconstitutional, illegal activity that targeted and destroyed groups of racial justice workers and dissent against the war in Vietnam. One of the groups that he targeted and nearly destroyed was the Black Panthers. This coming October, out in Oakland, California, there's going to be a very important event. The Black Panther Party will be celebrating its 50th anniversary. I'm going to be there, and I hope you might be able to be there as well. But it's important that we raise funds beginning today so that those events can be the kind of celebration they deserve to be. So please give what you can, and I hope to see you out in California in October. Goodbye.